Hi, my name is Matthew Schmidt. I'm an associate professor at the University of Florida, and today I'm introducing a presentation for the Research and Theory Division entitled Toward a Theory of Learning Experience Design with my colleagues and co-presenters, Dr. Yvonne Earnshaw at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Dr. Isa Janke at the University of Münster in Germany, and Dr. Andrew Tofik at the University of Memphis. I'd like to start today by quoting Andre Plaut, who states learning a new skill is supposed to be hard, but it doesn't need to be complicated. The difference between the two is the design. So what is the problem with learning experience design? Well, the issue can be foregrounded by looking outside of our field. If we look to the field of human-computer interaction, for example, or user experience design or user-centered design, we're going to find a wealth of information. However, when we look for guidance within our own field for how to conduct learning experience design, there is very little. This is an issue because we know that learning experience design practice is increasing. Just take a look at a site like Indeed.com and you'll find thousands of hits related to learning experience design. Now, this is an issue because there are no theoretical foundations that we know of related to LXD. There is no accepted definition. Ask 10 learning experience designers what learning experience design is, and you will get 10 different definitions. And finally, there's no consensus around what methods we can use or what research designs might be effective. So let's dive a little bit farther in.
Let's look at the individual components of what makes up learning experience design by looking at the definitions of each of those words. With experience, it's an event or occurrence which leaves an impression on someone, practical contact with, and observation of facts or events. With learning experience, this is an experience that leaves an impression on someone or practical contact with something, and where the someone learns something through shared meaning making and through intentional interaction. For example, with human-computer interaction or human-to-human via computer interaction, the learning experience refers to any interaction, course, program, or other experience in which the learning takes place. This could occur in formal settings or non-formal or informal settings, in traditional educational interactions or non-traditional interactions. The learning experience underscores or reinforces the goal of an educational interaction, learning, rather than the specific location or format. With learning experience design, this presents the learner with a process of activities, including reflection, that is designed in a human-centered manner that leaves an impression on the learner or a practical contact with something with a learning goal in mind. Learning experience design also looks at design practice, design product, and is a discrete field of study.
Learning experience design is multidimensional. And that's why we argue that a theory of learning experience design, LXD, draws from multiple traditions. First, user experience or usability. Second, socio-technical design, for example, how to design for collaborative learning through the use of technologies, and learning design or instructional design, and others, of course. So now I go into detail about these multiple dimensions. We focus on socio and sociocultural dimension, the technological dimension, and the pedagogical dimension. We argue that LXD theory must provide guidance in crafting effective learning experience while taking into account these multiple dimensions of digital learning. And now I have the details. First, the technological dimension. We see in learning experience design practice a lot of user experience and usability methods. For example, usability means that we try to capture how the quality of a user's experience, how easy or difficult a task might be for a learner when using that certain technology. However, as you can see, the technological dimension is insufficient because it focuses on any user performing any task to accomplish a range of goals. Think about a website that we designed and the user can drop out of that website when it's not usable or user-friendly. But in a learning situation, the instructor or teacher usually sets the technologies, so the learner seldom gets to choose the technologies and cannot drop out that easily when in a formal education. So the technological dimension needs the pedagogical dimension, means the instructional design and learning design, so knowledge and principle that we already know from research from that field of the pedagogical dimension. However, the pedagogical dimension needs also the technological dimension. They need to go hand in hand to inform each other how to design, for example, collaborative learning in a digital environment. And then we have the social and sociocultural dimension. The social learning aspects, for example, focus on not only individual learning, but how people learn from each other through the use of technologies or by interacting with technologies, for example, in an online setting. And the sociocultural theory is important because we have to ask, who are our learners in front of us? For whom do we design actually learning experiences? And maybe for one specific target audience or learners, we need different learning experience than for the others. So altogether, we can summarize that a learning experience design theory includes these three dimensions of sociocultural dimensions, how a learner collaborates and interacts with others through the use of technology, the technological dimensions, how we use methods from usability and user experience to understand how a learner interacts with the technology. And then number three, the pedagogical dimension, where we use knowledge and principles, how a learner learns and reaches their goals when in digital learning. So overall, these three inform a theory of learning experience design.
So with all that being said, what do we do and how do we work towards a theory? Like what we proposed, what happens is we're able to lay a theoretical foundation for new design plus study approaches. But what does that mean in practice? And so like we said, that there are novel design approaches and tools, and we know from instructional design literature some different approaches that would help us, whether personas, learning journeys. And now with this new theory, with the theory that we just proposed, we can think about some of these tools to be able to understand that phenomenon to a better degree. And so as a corollary to that, there are other methods and units of analysis that we could be looking at. To date, a lot of these have been on test scores or different learning artifacts. But what does it mean to measure interaction design, experience design? What units of analysis should we look like? And what are the appropriate methodologies to employ as we try and understand them? And so it's expanding what's in our current repertoire for analysis and statistical methods and other approaches. And lastly, we're proposing a multi-dimensional perspective, like what we discussed as a sociocultural, technological, pedagogical, and these collectively can inform the design of those learning experiences. We're not just looking through one particular approaches, but a multifaceted approach for doing so. And so in closing, LXD theory is critical, it's transdisciplinary, and it's iterative. Critical in the sense that it's able to interrogate design. It's not just saying that the user liked the theory, but we're able to understand to what degree, and we're able to test out that. And there are different study approaches for doing so. Second, it's transdisciplinary. It's interdependent, and we argue before that it's a confluence of multiple traditions. We're taking those traditions and using it and applying it to instructional design, and hopefully we can illuminate new pathways, new approaches to understanding what does it mean to learn when it comes to technology? What are the design implications for that? And lastly, it's iterative. It incorporates both research to improve and research to prove. So as we look towards the field of study, it includes both of those elements. In closing thoughts and future directions, like we propose, we seek to establish a depth of understanding of external methodologies that it's currently absent in our field. Other fields are beginning to understand this, beginning to measure this, and so on. And we argue that if we're able to have a theoretical approach and establish that within learning technologies community, we're able to elucidate different implications, and some of the methodologies are already there. But we can append that to what we're currently doing and establish new methods of understanding. And like I mentioned, because we're looking at other approaches, it's also a foray into the cognitive domain. We're not just looking at the cognitive domain or the affective domain, but given those different disciplines, we're able to expand the learning technologies and the design into some of these other domains that we haven't really looked at to date. Lastly, or as we conclude, we're also differentiating LXD from canonical idea approaches while aligning our existing traditions. So we're not saying that this is a new way of instructional design, but we're trying to align it with what we currently do. We have a rich tradition and we want to build on that while also expanding it at the same time. And lastly, hopefully, as we propose a sound theoretical approach, now we have a theoretical tradition to build upon. And so in doing so, we have that foundation. We're able to elevate the status of LXD research and practice now that we're able to gain some clarity on what this definition might look like in the theoretical underpinnings.